demonstration of the Advent Model AMT. Connect your air with 85 to 90 psi pressure. Regulate the pressure with the valve here. This is a water separator. It should be checked frequently and emptied before half full. This is a lubricator. It should apply lubricant approximately 1 drop every minute. Plug in the machine to a 115 volt power supply. The main power is switched on with the circuit breaker on the side here. You would then depress the power on button, start the machine. Power off, turns off power to the machine. Temperature controllers are turned on and off by the switch here. Temperature settings for most stock should be between 215 and 240 degrees. This will vary due to the paperweight and the color or mylars or the size of the mylar tabs. The control panel is accessed through the function buttons on both sides here. A sheet is included with the machine explaining the various functions. We have machine on off, which will turn on the feedboard drives for the in-feed, pull-out, and die cutting section, and feeder on and off, which will turn on the feeder to feed sheets into the machine. Batch count is used to set the quantity of tabs that you're going to run in a batch. You would push the button and hold it, hit mod, left arrow key, enter your new quantity, hit enter, press and hold batch count again to reset, and the new batch quantity is entered into the machine. The machine will stop when the batch count is reached, and it will indicate that by pieces to be run equals 0. Stop up will allow you to clear sheets from the die cutting section. Run bypass when on will turn the mylar off and allow you to just do plain die cutting of the machine. And die cut bypass when on will apply a mylar tab, but no die cutting will occur on the sheets. Tip die up and down is used when feeding mylar into the machine, and pressing it a second time will lower the die and cut off the material. Tip feed, after feeding the mylar, you will press the button and feed one piece in to check the length of the material and adjust it accordingly. Jaw dwell. The dwell time for the sealing jaws will vary depending upon the size of the mylar tab that is going to be applied to the sheet. A larger sheet will require more dwell time. A smaller sheet, lower. As a rule of thumb, for a 2.5 inch tab, you would be about 0.25. But again, this will vary due to the paper and the mylar film being used on the machine. Jog all will allow you to jog the feed boards or feeder during setup. Depressing it turns off the function. We have feeder speed control, which will increase or decrease the rate of paper being fed into the machine, and that will increase or decrease the rate the machine will run at. Additionally, here in the main panel we have added some indicator dials and to make it easier to you to adjust or readjust the speeds of the various sections of the machine: the in-feed, out-feed, die cut board, and feeder feed board. The sheet will also be included with the machine with the factory settings as we have returned it to you. Additionally, it will have information on the voltage of the power controllers, the motor controls, the DC voltages for each unit for a reference. When setting up the feeder, the right side guide remains fixed at all times in its position, and A change in the width of the paper will require the left side guide to be moved in and out depending upon the sheet width. The pressure of the pull-out roller is adjusted with the knob on the left-hand side. It will be varied due to the thickness of paper to get a consistent feed. Additionally, there is a wiping device on the pull-out roller to remove paper dust to give a more consistent feed to your product. There are also 2 pull-out rollers which are adjustable for pressure. They should be an even pressure so as the sheet is transferred onto the feed board, it has a smooth progress. On the feeder feed board there is a photo eye which is a jam detector. If a sheet should stop in this area, it will stop the feeder from feeding, clear the paper from under the photo eye, hit the alarm button to clear the alarm, restart the machine. We have added 2 scales to the machine here on the sealing section and on the die cut feed board to make it easier to set up. The reference here is across the edge of the feed board, bowl board, and the stop location here. This will allow you on a 9x11 sheet to do easier setup with the machine. As you change positions, you can set them both to correspond to each other, and that will give you a general setting for a changeover to the next position. Whenever you change positions, you will release the locking nut and move the feeder location by turning the hand wheel on the right side of the feeder, move to this new position, and then lock the shaft again. On the in-feed section, under this guard, which is removed for demonstration purposes, it is important as you change positions that the in-feed wheels are approximately 2 inches inside the edge of the sheet and the third roller centered on the sheet. This is important for even drive into the sealing unit. The centering line here indicates the center of the sealing jaw area. The plastic should be centered on that line, equally on either side, to get consistent seal quality. If you change the size of the Mylar, you will have to recenter it by adjusting the hand wheel here to move the location and recenter the plastic. You adjust by the length of the Mylar by releasing the locking knob and turning to shorten or lengthen using the hand wheel here, relock it, and then you would recenter the Mylar. We have added a new hold down device for the upper in-feed so that when you are feeding the Mylar, you can return it when you are ready to run. Threading the Mylar on the machine, install it on the hub, pass the rollers, crease evenly about 6 inches of the film, and cut a lead on the end. Pass the film through the creasing device and pull it, and then thread it through the hitch feed gripper. And then into the tip die around the spreader. To press the tip die up-down switch, continue feeding the Mylar through the tip die, making sure that it passes over and under the gripper on the tip die. Feed out about 6 inches. To press the tip die switch again, remove the cut, turn on the machine, feed a tip, check for length and good creasing. If it is correct, we turn off the machine, return the in-feed section down, Make sure it's fully in. Replace any guards removed during setup. Turn on the machine again. Press tip feed. And feed another piece of Mylar. The lubrication reservoir for the tip dies should be kept about half full with dye lube only. Check it regularly and refill as required. Tab dies should also be lubricated with dye lube only using the 4 nipples. They should be done when the machine is used on a regular basis, about every other day. And they should be lubricated with dye lube only. We have added a setup piece for when you need to make an adjustment to the size of the tab cut. First you will turn off power to the machine and also turn off the air supply. When it's necessary to change the size of the tab cut, the shorter die is fixed and remains in the same location, and you will first put in the spacer block and lower the die set down to it. This engages the upper and lower sections of the die, which should be done anytime any adjustments or changes in position are done to the die. You will remove the die guard, slide out of the way of the dies, and loosen the screws top and bottom, and also loosen the entry guide. May be necessary if going to a smaller tab. It may also be necessary to move the hold down piece here as you go closer together with the 2 dies. Lock them back in place at the new position. Lock the top and bottom sections back together again, and check for a cut. Adjusting the dies for the new position, introduce a sheet into the die cutting section, return the die to its forward position and lock. Switch the air lines on the jogger so that the jogger moves to a forward position, and check that you have good pressure and a slight bow on the sheet by the jogger rail to ensure good registration on the die cut. If it needs to be adjusted, you will loosen the 2 screws, move it forward or back, and relock them. You should then check the distance between the standoff and the jogger rail on both sides. This should be equal to get a consistent jog. A few seats of Mylar and die cut sheets to demonstrate the operation. First turn machine on and press feeder on. When the batch count is completed, the machine will stop feeding paper. Generally, you'll have to remove the sheet from the feed board. Press the enter button to clear the alarm. Press batch count to reset the batch to the count. Restart the machine. Depress feeder. We will now run a few sheets after putting in run bypass. It's in die cut bypass, applying Mylar only without die cutting.